Welcome to AIJAC Insight. My name is Rebecca Davis and I'm a journalist and AIJAC's digital media editor. Today's guest is Amjad Taha. Amjad Taha, welcome to Australia and welcome to AIJAC Insight. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're an analyst, you're a researcher, you're an expert in strategic political affairs, specialising in the Middle East. Tell us a little bit about your journey and your trajectory as to how you became one of the most prolific voices really on social media for the case for Israel.
Was very always interested in speaking about the truth and the reality of what's happening in the Middle East. And I think coming from UAE, where I am from, we live 2 hours away from Iran, 3 hours away from Israel, 4 hours away from Afghanistan. Not the best place to be at, but you will be always interested in knowing about your neighbors and about the history of the region, and knowing and increasing in the path of increasing my knowledge. Got to know that Israel is part of the past, part of the present, and part of the future of the Middle East, and it has been so. And of course, we always had Jewish neighbors around our community and others' community. So yeah, that's where the interest came from. I used to get challah every Friday, so yeah.
Wow. What was that relationship like with growing up with Jewish neighbors in the UAE?
Well, we had a Jewish neighbor from Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah, they originally from Iraq, and so they were always a very nice, amazing neighbor. Providing challah every Friday, but the afternoon of Friday, so the Shabbat of the Jewish community, yeah. And it was always fresh.
It's a good way to make friends.
It's amazing.
Is this the key to peace in the Middle East? Sharing more challah? Challah for Muslims?
Yeah.
Now, I'm interested to know about what has really prompted you to speak up. You've become, as I mentioned, a very pivotal voice on social media, particularly at a time where I think it's fair to say post-October 7, the Jewish community, there's even been those amongst us in the Jewish community who've been too scared to raise their voice and to speak out. And there's been long-standing friends who've suddenly gone silent as well. What's really driven and prompted you to use your voice?
When the Holocaust happened, there are some people who participated and there are some who celebrated, and there are some who went on silent mood, and there are some who tried to help the Jewish community to survive. And this is why many of our friends, their grandparents are the survivors of the Holocaust. Now, when the 7th of October happens, when it happened, we are here. When the Holocaust happened, we were not there. We can't do much about it. We can only read about those atrocities that happened back then. But when the 7th of October happened, again, we have the 4 choices. Do we participate? Do we celebrate? Do we go on silent mood? Or do we try to help the baby Kafir's mom and their family? A baby that 8 months old, never participated in any battle, doesn't know where is Israel, doesn't know where is Gaza, doesn't know nothing, was kidnapped by the terrorist organization of Hamas. And where do we stand on this? Do we stand with the baby, Kafir, or do we stand with the person who kidnapped baby Kafir? It's about the morals and the values of a humanity. It's a clear black and white. You can't be on a gray zone on this one.
And yet, there are many who don't see it with the moral clarity that you do.
Yes, because also historically anti-Semitism always existed. It has been at one point or another ignored or not been dealt with swiftly or firmly or legally. And because of that, now today, humanity and the international community is paying the price for that. Because we did not, in terms of we as a human being all around the world, the international community did not deal very well with the anti-Semitism. That's why you have a lot of students who are hostages of the Hamas propaganda, hostages of the Nazis, hostages in the terms of the mind of theirs at this stage is a hostage of that ideology, that extreme radical ideology that says you should celebrate the death of a Jew person regardless of where and how. And it becomes so bad, the least term that I can use at this point, to a point where people are raising the flag of Hamas and Hezbollah in Sydney.
Yes.
In West Sydney. This is a country of civilization. This is a city that is very civilized, is very developed. It's raising the flag of Hezbollah, who has carried atrocities against not just the Israelis, but also against the Iranians, against the Arabs, against the Syrians. Hezbollah has killed more than 500,000 people, 500,000 of the Muslim, Jews, Christians in Syria. Hezbollah has falsely displaced more than 9 million of the Arabs in Syria. And so this is why when Nasrallah was eliminated by Israel, we didn't hear the news from IDF or Israel or Israeli media. In fact, we heard the news of celebration from a mosque instead of calling for prayer in the middle of the night, was asking people to go and celebrate. Nasrallah has been eliminated. And that does serve the humanity, because he was planning to kill more. And he put a lot of people's lives in the Middle East in a grave danger.
But this narrative seems to be missing from a lot of the mainstream media. So as someone who is a proud Emirati and an Arab, first of all, at what cost does that come at to speak up and be so vocal on this issue?
Well, I'm proud to be from a country, UAE, where we have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. And also proud to be from a country where Muslim brotherhoods are banned. And Muslim Brotherhood, the armed forces of it, is Hamas. So we had Hamas as banned already in UAE, where various countries are struggling at this stage and point to ban, for example, Hizb ut-Tahrir. And Hizb ut-Tahrir manifest from the Muslim Brotherhood. And their manifest exactly is a copy-paste of Muslim Brotherhood. And in fact, and maybe we refer to ChatGPT, the AI, all you need to do for your audience, get the manifest of the Hizb ut-Tahrir and get the Muslim Brotherhood's manifest. In fact, let's go more extreme. Get Hamas manifest and ask ChatGPT to find the similarities. You'd be very surprised. However, they're still called a political activist. They're not political activists. They're activists using the politics in the path of reaching the power, and only then and there they radicalize your generation. And once they do so, that generation becomes their hostage. They will carry the crime on their behalf. And we saw where a Jewish student attending a university thought that through education, peace, prosperity, and coexistence and tolerance, you can coexist with other person through education. But that Jewish individual or student at that university, he was attending a class that he was thrown out of. Someone came to him or came to her and told her, we celebrate Hamas, we celebrate Hezbollah, who have been killing and committing atrocities against the Jewish community and against people and so on. What you did there, and what this Hizb ut-Tahrir and Muslim Brotherhood done at that stage, they put a scar on the soul of that girl or that boy who's tried to study at university for the sake of education, and through education he thought that's where peace comes from. They put that scar, and they, regardless of this war is going to finish in the end of the day. But that student is left out with a scar on his soul. How are you going to heal that?
I want to dive into the murky world of social media. You have a very strong following, over 1 million between X and Instagram. What we've seen on social media since October 7 has really been a hijacking of the dominant narrative, which has been very divisive in accusing Israel of all manner of war crimes and genocide. There's a very clear double standard that has been playing out. What is it that you would like the people of social media to know? Because clearly your message has the ability to resonate.
First, when it comes to social media, bad news is good news. So a lot of people, they follow the trend. They don't create the trend. Two, a lot of their knowledge is TikTok knowledge. So it's very shallow, narrow, not much of knowledge there. So they don't know much about the history of the Middle East. And some of them are there even confused about their own defining themselves. So if you're confused about that, I think it would be hard for you to not be confused about the crisis and the issues that are happening in the Middle East all the way 14 hours away from Australia. And we come from the Middle East. So when we speak about the Middle East, we know exactly what we're speaking about. That doesn't mean you're ignorant, who you're a person that live away from the country, you don't know much. You do, but you need to listen directly to the people who are living there. Maybe the solution is very different, number one. Number two is, what was funny is the fact that those social media activists, when they go on the street and occupy the street, and I'm using their terminologies, when they occupy the street for 1 hour and they ask for the freedom, for example, of other side, whoever sides is it, for 1 hour when they occupy it, they prevent the other side, including the Jewish community's freedom to express or join the protest or try to participate or express their opponent view. That's them practicing dictatorship for 1 hour in a state of democracy. And what they do in the same time, they start attacking the businesses of others by asking for boycotting and so on. That's them harming the business of others and the community. At the same time, they prevent people who do not agree with them to enter the place, and also they separate the Jewish community from attending the place. That's them dividing the community. Again, division, and in the same time, boycott, harming the business, and also they use violence. And we saw violence against kids, children, violence against women, violence against disabled people, violence against all and everyone who is opponent of their view. Violence against even food, challah. They attack a kosher restaurant. I don't know how is a kosher restaurant has anything to do with anything that's happening in the Middle East. And that's them occupying the street for 1 hour. So imagine if imagine them ruling a country. So what you having in the social media is people who lack knowledge. They don't know much. They haven't opened they don't know much about the history. They read from Wikipedia and they read from various accounts, shallow accounts who are just looking for followers. We don't care about followers. We care about the fact that in history will recall this moment. Who stayed and stood with the baby Kafir when he was kidnapped, and who glorified the kidnapper? Who glorified life and who glorified death?
So what's the antidote to that then? When there's so many and there's this, as I mentioned, there's a double standard. People are happy to say, but 42,000 Palestinians. And of course, all loss of life is horrific.
Absolutely.
But what is the antidote for those people who perhaps sit in the middle, who may not have a clear view, a little bit apathetic, a little bit ignorant, and can be easily guided to just easily swayed by the dominant narrative?
Even at universities, even at certain TV stations, or so many, go there and tackle it, increase their knowledge about it, speak. Just like those students in Sydney's University, or Canberra's universities, and others from the Jewish community who stood. Those are brave students. They are not just any student. Those are fighters, warriors, should be respected. You see literally 3 girls standing there in front of all these people who are slandering them and slandering the children and slandering everyone, and they stood firmly and strongly. That's a nation that will survive under any circumstances. So, And when you do that, do not do it with violence. Do not do it by using any form of filthy language. Do it with knowledge. And a great example of that is the fact that since the 15th April 2003, up to the moment me and you right now are speaking, the Muslim Brotherhood-led army in Sudan has been carrying airstrikes against their own people, or against also the opponent of them. And they have used the airstrike to kill 80,000 children and women. 80,000 children and women. They destroyed schools and hospitals. Churches they burnt, and destroyed mosques too. They bombarded every place. According to the United Nations, there is 5 million in Sudan are starving, and 200,000 of those are children that might die of starvation. You tell me, how many of those students have posted a post, just one post, one post about those children? Black Lives Matter, African Lives Matter, Arab Lives Matter, Christian Lives Matter, Muslim Lives Matter, all those are human beings. How many posted one post? How many people did protest about these people? Well, those children don't deserve any support, any protest, any media attraction. And again, these guys are following the trend. It's not about humanity. And when you see queers for Palestine, and when you see communists for Palestine, and when you see all those examples, they don't care about Palestine. They don't know where is Palestine. They don't know nothing about the Palestinian. They don't know nothing about the Muslims who are living in Israel. They don't know about the 12 members of the parliament who are elected democratically and Arabs and represented in the parliament of Israel. They don't know about the 300 mosques that exist in Israel and the 400 imams, their salaries paid by the government of Israel. They don't know about all these things. This what gets the queers and the communists, with due respect to all, and their ideologies and perspective and opinion and whichever, and the Hamas and the Hezbollah glorifies. What gathers all these people? Anti-Semitism. They're all anti-Semites. And of course there is a lot of politics into this. The Russians and their lobby in the West and also in Australia wants you to focus on Israel rather than Ukraine, or in the Middle East rather than Ukraine. And of course the Chinese, they want you to focus on the Middle East and Gaza, Israel, Hezbollah and all this, and be involved in that rather than Taiwan and so many other things.
How do you cut through to make the masses understand? You mentioned before about Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. Hezbollah are extensions of that. They're proxies of Iran. You're talking about radical Islamism, and yet somehow there is this giant disconnect in understanding this is an attack on Western civilization, that it's beyond Israel.
I think right now the fight is between light and darkness, and there is various examples of that. When Israel gets rid of Nasrallah, and it's been celebrated in the Middle East, define that, and it's been mourned in Sydney. So in the Middle East, people are celebrating the elimination of Nasrallah, and in Sydney, they are mourning Nasrallah. It's one of the things, you're either well, I can't say useful idiot, because they're idiots, but they're not useful, definitely. You're either that, or you're not connected to the Middle East. You don't know nothing.
But that's the thing that I find mind-blowing, is you've got people, Arab communities, various Arab communities here in Australia, who have had to migrate to Australia, Christian communities from Egypt, for example.
Because of some of the Islamist radicals, including Hezbollah, made them migrate, made them suffer, and because of the suffering, they came to Australia.
Yes, but some of them are the same that are lambasting Israel.
Yeah.
The contradiction is...
It's not a contradiction. It's people who need to be attending hospital rather than be activists in the streets.
There's been a lot of discussion about the day after in Gaza, the day after the war. And there's been discussion as well about Gulf Arab states' involvement, UAE. What do you see as the path forward for the day after, and is there an involvement in your perspective?
I think a lot of international community and the region wants to get involved in the post-war in terms of the rebuilding Gaza, and at the same time bringing law and order in Gaza and de-radicalization. Those are 3 phases, and it goes through stages, and it takes a lot of time. It wouldn't be just 1 year and 2 years and that's how you achieve it. But for that to be reached, the communication should be through the Palestinian Authority. But Palestinian Authority is not fit to lead. And they're well known in the Middle East for being a 40 Alibaba's thieves. And they are full of corruption. They do not represent the Palestinians, nor they care about their people as much as they care about their pockets and their bank accounts. And so for that to be built, first stage is that a new Palestinian Authority that can represent a new whole administration, including the president and the prime minister of himself, that can actually believes in peace and prosperity and coexistence, and believe that you can have Israel as a state, a neighbor, and also you got to respect your neighbors, including the Egypt and Jordan and others. They would not want an Islamic Republic of Iran right next door. Nor anybody in the world wants a Nazi state that supports some anti-Semitism and racism and fascism and justifies under any circumstances and any point the kidnapping of a baby or a raping of a woman and so on. So for that mentality to be changed, first you need the leadership that understand you need to care about your people and their future, and for them to be developed and civilized and so on, more than caring about what the other side should do in terms of and how they should live and so on. That would be the first stage. So a whole new administration, the Palestinian Authority, which then can request the international community to get involved in bringing law and order that will be putting boots on the ground, people of faith in the same faith and the same language where they can comprehend and understand both sides. And from there, the United States of administration need to be strong enough to support that internationally. A weak administration in the White House will affect the Middle East, including Gaza. So we need a very strong one that can support such an initiative. And the next stage would be de-radicalization of Gaza. And the de-radicalization of Gaza, West Bank, and also the region, including Israel, it would be going through the educational curriculum of that. And the educational curriculum, the educational system in Gaza and West Bank specifically, it's full of anti-Semitism, anti-Jew, even some of the Arabs in the region where they support the normalization and so on. That need to be not just the educational curriculum, also the culture of hate and not accepting the peace, including the graffitis on the street that calls for death of other or the martyrdom and all these things. That need to be replaced with peace, prosperity, coexistence, tolerance, accepting the neighbor, accepting the other, moving on and so on. When that's established, only then we can have the conversation of the two-state solution. But at this stage, a two-state solution is not a starting conversation in the international community, regardless of many statements that are outside there. The starting conversation should be law, order, de-radicalization, and then, only then, when a real leader that believes in peace, only then you can establish or come up with a dialogue of building a state.
Going back to your original point there of a new administration for the Palestinian Authority, and then you followed up by talking about de-radicalization, how realistic in your assessment is there the prospects for a new administration that is genuinely open to a better future when there's so much evidence of propaganda in the West Bank as well, and the hate is so deeply entrenched in the education system, at various spheres of Palestinian life? From that very initial starting point, how likely is that in your opinion?
Well, Japanese achieved it to the American. They were fighting each other face to face.
Yeah.
And the United States of America even used the nuclear. The British and the Irish people, they actually also achieved it on the Good Friday. And then you have the Eritrea and Ethiopia in Africa. You have the Pakistanis and the India. And Pakistan as a country became ethno-religious. That's how we separated. In fact, one of the great, it had its independence 9 months after Israel had its own independence. And it was for the same reason, ethno-religion. So there is a lot of example of peace, prosperity, and the fact that they made that peace. And they made, because of a great leadership, a better leadership, let's say, that was fostering and supporting the peace, they reached a certain deal. And as well, after the Oslo's declaration, or the agreement of Oslo, the Palestinians had authority, they have a passport, they have various things that they didn't have before that. Even international recognition, they had all that. And again, in the same time, the Palestinians, they have a lot of elites who are outside. Some of them believe in Orientalism, intellectualism, and various, or a peaceful manner of doing so. But they're not being given a voice whatsoever because of those radicals who all the way also escaped from people who escaped from Taliban and people who escaped from Iranian proxy in Lebanon or in Gaza or even in Iraq. They live in the West and they glorify the ones who kicked their parents out. They're suffering from those voices. So I think if the opportunity is given and if the American administration support firmly and strongly such a voice, they will come up on the platforms of peace, and they will present their faces more and more, and they not fearing the clash of or some international community and not welcoming them.
On that notion of peace, I want to jump to normalization and to the Abraham Accords of 2020. In your view, what have been some of the greatest successes and challenges to come from that?
Oh, there is a lot of success on agriculture, on AI, on technology, on culture, on education, on various levels, literally, on business, economy, all that. And the trade has been becoming really high between the state of Israel and the UAE when it comes to over $3 billion. And at the same time, when it comes to the on various aspects of it, it has been a great, and it has served the Middle East, and it brought peace for the few years of the Abrahamic Accord. We had a more stable, let's say, Middle East until Biden administration came in power, and then things changed. There hadn't been anything negative about the Abrahamic Accord whatsoever. People-to-people peace actually has worked, and is working really well. So it's, and then we have, of course, we had the Abrahamic Family House. In UAE, it's a country of diversity, zero tolerance for anti-Semitism, where Muslim Brotherhood is banned. 200 nations are living right side by side next to each other, where you see the synagogue right next to the church, right next to a mosque. That diversity always existed and will always exist, where violence is not tolerated whatsoever. So UAE puts the light there and sets the example for the Middle East to follow. While there is two vision in the Middle East, the vision of UAE to reach all the way to the mosque, we dreamed of it, we reached it. And there is the other vision, while we trying to reach the mosque, there were some people digging tunnels to kidnap a baby.
Yeah.
Two different visions in the Middle East.
From a people perspective, what have you observed an evolution of the perceptions and sentiments towards Israel since normalization?
In what sense?
Like on a people-to-people, not bilateral relations, just on how people interact.
Well, we interacted with the people of Israel in terms of the Muslim, the Jews, the Christians. They're always coming, traveling through the tourism and so many. So the only difference the normalization between the state of Israel and the UAE has made is the fact that the Israelis, they can get the visas. Before that, we always had the Jewish community welcomed in in UAE.
So it hasn't evolved any further. It's just the status quo has been preserved.
It's evolved in a great manner. Is the fact that is the homes they're welcomed, just like any other nation, just like the Australians, just like the Americans, just like the Indians, the Chinese. In the end of the day, they just like anybody else. They have their own culture, their own values, their own morals, which is we have a lot in mutual and respect.
We've seen protests against autocracies in the Arab world has ended with failed states, with Arab rules becoming more autocratic. What needs to be done in terms of true democracy to fully come to the Arab world?
Well, maybe democracy doesn't suit the Arab world. Maybe the system of democracy has a lot of errors.
Go on.
Including the fact that get an Orthodox Jew right now to present his identity and go in West Sydney. He cannot do that. He will be insulted. Put the same Orthodox Jew to go and travel around in the GCC countries. He will not be insulted. In Dubai, he will not be insulted. He will not have to face anti-Semitism. He doesn't need to definitely hide his kippah. So you have an error, we don't. In the system of yours. Our system fits us. We're happy with it. We're really happy to it. What you have to go through every 4 years and elect and ask for a housing, we have it. We're born with it. You have to vote every year if you're going to have your health system, your health insurance. We're born with it. If I don't need to apply for a scholarship, I get the scholarship. It's my right. And our leaders provide all that, serves us. It's a system that fits us. You like a different food than I do. I cannot force a steak to you if you like fish and chips. It's yours. It's your food. Your system is very different than I. Your environment is very different than I. Our clothing is different. Our minds and everything is different. Have we not been a successful nation? We have. You didn't see a terrorist attack in Dubai, but you see a terrorist attack in Sydney, lone wolves. So your system has a problem in it. Why is the same Muslim that when he goes and lives in Dubai, he's very diverse and he's open-minded to all and he lives among others? But when he lives in Sydney, he's radicalized. There are people in West Sydney, an imam went on Sydney and he was glorifying on the 7th of October. And he said, today we got our dignity. He thinks killing a baby is his dignity. No one dares to say support such a violence in the whole Middle East, including my country. We're proud to say that. But can you be proud of saying that? Do you think that's democracy? That's incitement. And guess what? A lot of people who suffered from anti-Semitism, they don't have the money to go and get a good lawyer. And there you go, the system fails them. So someone is being anti-Semite towards them, and they cannot even defend themselves. That doesn't mean your system is not good. It just has errors. It needs to be adjusted. It needs to be... just like there is many things that has changed through time, and there was a lot of rules and regulation that did not exist 5 years ago, start existing right now, so is this cases. It need to be readdressed. And don't tell people that your system fits everybody else. Our system fits you, it fits us, and your system fits you very well. But also, as much as our system we literally every year we go through a lot of rules and regulation and readdress them, change them, and so on, that it gets updated and reviewed where it suits not just us, also the guest of us. We see all the expats as guests, and that's how they are being treated. So, and it fits them to a point where it's the whole society is quite diverse. But you can't protect right now in a Jewish family if he goes to West Sydney. You can't protect it. You cannot guarantee 100% a protection. We can in our city. You can't.
So from that alternative viewpoint then, I'm interested to know, because I think a lot of the Jewish community in Australia has certainly felt let down by our leadership. in both state and federal governments post-October 7. We've had groups feel so emboldened as to say F the Jews at the Sydney Opera House and burn the Israeli flag, and we've had riots in the Jewish suburb of Caulfield, violent riots that have taken place, and Jews feeling scared to go out in the streets. We've had doxing incidences, businesses being targeted, Jewish people in the arts, in every spectrum of life. Jews have felt threatened in Australia, which I think this great sense of betrayal is something that no one actually anticipated. Australia's always lauded itself as being this great multicultural country, tolerant, peaceful.
But this was the test.
Right. So
Failed.
then from your very different perspective, what needs to change so that there truly is peace and tolerance amongst different communities?
Starting point, anti-Semitism is a crime, not an opinion.
Yes.
Again, it's a crime, not an opinion. It has nothing to do with the freedom of speech. And if you believe it's a freedom of speech, then you basically, what you're saying, Osama bin Laden should come and lecture in your parliament and be a Senate. Today, if you face this case right now, and you go and arrest or bring them at least to justice, those Muslim brotherhoods and those glorifiers of death, today you might have a protest from their followers. But mark my words for this. In 5 to 10 years' time, you will have a riots, not a protest. This voice is from the Middle East. We know the literature of theirs. We have families who suffered from such a language of hate. The only difference is Osama bin Laden used to have his certain dress code and beard. The Muslim Brotherhoods came here for a tie and a suit, clean shaved. They know the stereotype. They know exactly how to deal with the media. And they are dangerous. The rules and the regulation need to be readdressed. You're a country of democracy. Bring those Hizb ut-Tahrir that you don't dare to ban, even though Britain has banned them. And it's like some people say, well, they don't address hate in Australia. It's like saying Hamas in Gaza, it's a terrorist, but if Hamas is in the United States of America, well, they're not terrorists. It doesn't make sense. Hizb ut-Tahrir is banned in various places around the world, including Britain, which you definitely can associate yourself with. They're democratic, you're a democracy too. So why did they ban it and you haven't? What are you waiting for? For them to commit the crime? Okay, and they committed the crime, and then what? You're going to bring them to justice, and then what? But there is victims already. You destroy the whole society. Many things need to be readdressed for the sake of what? For the sake of a greater happiness of others. In the same time, okay, if you cannot do it by regulation and law, fine. Bring Hizb ut-Tahrir manifest as senators and members of the parliament. Do an inquiry where you set them in front of the public and let them answer your questions. Ask them the harsh questions about certain aspects of society and what's their ideology and mentality towards certain countries, certain people, certain part of ethnicities and minorities that live side by side next to each other in Australia. And again, in the same time, go and look at where Hizb ut-Tahrir members are and look at their family and their house and their society. How are they behaving? They behaving as a country inside a country.
As we sit here, the US election plays out, votes being tallied. It's looking increasingly likely for a Trump victory. What are the ramifications for the Middle East in your opinion?
Trump is Trump, so you don't know what's next. Well, The weak administration in the White House means Iran will be more powerful. A strong and firm administration in the White House means the Iranian proxy will be weaker, the least I can say. And so Trump got rid of Qasem Soleimani, got rid of the ISIS. He participated in bringing the Abrahamic Accord. He has a lot in his basket when it comes to the Middle East. And of course, we can only deal with Trump in the Middle East as a Middle Eastern, rather than Trump domestically or internally. That's their policy, and their inside policy is different, and we don't have much view on it. But we know what we feel when it comes to the Middle East. There was no war in the Middle East when Trump was in power. The only war he was against ISIS, and ISIS lost. We need a strong, firm administration that can rule America, but in the same time that can support peace and prosperity in the Middle East, the coexistence, and also a firm, strong administration that counters Islamists and destroys the Muslim Brotherhoods under all circumstances.
Just finally, with so many forces against peace in the Middle East, and just generally, do you believe in the prospects of peace wholeheartedly still?
Oh, absolutely. Post-war in Gaza, and also hopefully victory over Hezbollah's terrorists in Lebanon, because also the victory over Hezbollah will be serving humanity, and it would be serving definitely the Lebanese people first and foremost, and of course the Israeli people who have been suffering from Hezbollah's launching rockets towards schools and hospitals and children and women and so many. Very optimistic. A lot of people will join, and a lot of countries will join the Abrahamic Accord, many in fact. And a strong administration in the White House will mean we will have a lot of peace treaty, and a much better, let's say, the least we can say, than the previous 4 years.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all that you do in using your voice for good.
Together we stand, and together we thrive. Thank you.
Thank you.